One of our favorite guests, Neil DeGraide of Dirt Poor Robins, is coming out with a 5-part film called Queen of the Night, and he commissioned me to publish a series of video essays analyzing the deeper meaning of each episode as they are released every month. Super excited for the first release, November 16th. Expect a video essay shortly thereafter. And now, a conversation with Neil in which he gives a sneak peek into the making of the film and reveals a few of the main themes to look out for in Queen of the Night. What would you say are some major themes that people could look forward to viewing, but then also learning more about through analysis?
Okay. Well, in this film, one of the things that was troubling me when I was writing it is scientism. So scientism is this sort of non-scientific trust in science, right? Where certain things aren't questioned, where we follow the science, or we think that the real most important information about the world is scientific information. I don't believe that at all. I believe that, like, you know, I don't believe that like what's happening on a cellular physical level or quantum level is what we experience in our bodies and our days and when we're out and talk to people. Of course, these things need to exist for us to exist, but it's not, there's not much meaning to be found down there. The meaning is in interactions and personification of things and personalities colliding and cosmic forces colliding. I think that's where mythology has its strength, because it can have a bigger discussion than just how things work on a physical level. So I've just for a long time suspected that once people like peered through microscopes and telescopes, that there a certain type of madness came in as far as like where real meaning was, because there's so many details to dig through and there's so many things to gather. But meanwhile, purpose and meaning is something that's here right in front of us all the time, and we haven't gained any sort of wisdom through this scientific pursuit, and that's been really bothering me. So I think that like there was a Pandora's type box that opened that it doesn't seem to be playing out that well over time. Like people have access to more information than ever, and it seems like things are tearing apart more than ever at the same time. And I don't think those two things are unrelated. So this story, I think, was birthed in that ground where there's this technology, this glass we've looked through. And in the movie, you might figure out what that is. And there's this glass we look through, and we've peered into something we can't really understand or integrate, but we think it's important and we're integrating it. Meanwhile, we're depersonifying ourselves, we're dehumanizing ourselves, and we're breaking apart. And so the story, I think, was born out of that in my own heart. But there's other things about the story I like. So there's I love just plain old symbolism of the day and night and all the different factors of that. So it really digs into that and really powerful feminine symbolism in the movie. So it really deals with this divine feminine type of symbolism that we can really see in display at the night. This is, if you don't know anything about symbolism or you're involved in these conversations in the past, I guess I'm speaking gibberish right now.
Feel free to watch the 3-part analysis that I did of Language of Creation. That's like about as compact as a primer as I could point you towards at this point.
That's a good point. You did a great job on those. So I think it came out of that. So I told the story. So people on the channel probably know of a gentleman named Jonathan Peugeot. And so I was talking with Jonathan and I was like, hey, let me tell you the story. And he's like, that's great. Told him the story. And I said, I'd love to have you come in and consult. So one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to impose a message into a story. The stories kind of come to me and they feel right. And I'm really interested in them. I really want to see them and I really want to write about them. And so I feel like I'm onto something when that happens, but I don't want to start getting critical about it. I don't want to start breaking down the symbolism myself personally. I just want to let it hit me because I think I'm better at when I do that implicitly than when I do it explicitly. When I do it explicitly, it seems to be boring. When I do it implicitly, it seems to be something bigger than I could actually think of myself. So I brought him in and I was expecting him to sort of like tear it apart and rearrange it. And he's like, but it didn't turn into that kind of conversation. He's like, yeah, this is great. This is really coherent. And he would add to it. And then he would add to it. And I'd be like, oh, I would add to it back. And so what I thought was going to take us months to get the story down, after, a conversation and a half, we had the whole thing together. So he also, because we moved through the symbolic part of that so quickly, where he was analyzing it, and he was adding to it, really, adding levels of detail that maybe
Awesome.
wouldn't have been really obvious to me. One of those levels of detail is that really outer space is very similar to the bottom of the ocean, like, or the depths of the ocean, even
Oh,
in our world as we understand it and interact with it. So a space suit is very similar to a deep sea diving suit, and a submarine is very different, just similar to a rocket ship. And we really can't breathe and survive outside. I mean, there is an opposite to it in the sense that you get crushed at the bottom of the ocean and you would expand in the sky. So there's a part of it where we treat outer space like the bottom of the ocean. But I won't get too much into that. I'll save that for you because I know you would catch that anyway. So we dealt with
that's
that,
good.
and then
That's really good.
silent film. So I don't like silent films generally. I like the way they look. I like the gist of it. But to actually, if you've ever sat through and watched like a full length silent film, it's not a terrific experience now, because you didn't get dressed up, you didn't go to the theater, and there's not a live orchestra scoring it. There's generally someone on YouTube is slapped like a grandmother playing the piano all over it, and sometimes it's not even coordinated with the music, it's loosely related. And so the whole experience of it, and there's still some places where you can go and do this, where a band scores the movie live, and it's an entirely different event. It's something way better than a normal movie. And so I've been a part of these. I've heard these. There's a couple of bands that there's a lot of local orchestras are doing this now, because they're trying to do anything to put people in seats, because people are less and less interested in classical music, so they're scoring video games live and things like that. But silent film. So I wasn't a huge fan of silent films, cool. But I love that era. I love like the early 1900s seem to have a lot of parallels with what we're going through now, the way culture moved. And it's this real dawn of the city and technology and this Art Deco design, and then like this future dream of futurism and spacecrafts. I think it's a really great sandbox to tell a story in too. So I really wanted the movie to take place in an era that would have been a silent film.
And plus, a silent film, it has to lean upon symbolism, because you take out the verbal component, and like, how else are you going to communicate meaning? It's almost like people that don't speak the same language having to gesture,
And that's really, you can really ruin a silent film's pacing by having too much dialogue. And so it's like, well, I got a complex story to tell. So Jonathan was a huge help with that, where I just wrote out the script, and I'm like, I have too many slates. What do I cut? Right? What's fluff? What could be said shorter? And we spent an hour one day just tearing apart the dialogue, and he just kept lopping things off, and he's like, no, this is implied, you don't need him to respond. And he was always right. So
just have him smirk a little.
Yeah, right. No, it was really true. And so we got to that part of the process. A guy who works with me, TJ Hester, helped me edit it and fix all of the mistakes in typing and and that stuff. And he actually formatted it into a screenplay for me. And then we went and shot it. Over the course of a month. So November 16th is episode 1. Episode 1's great. I love it because it really works as a self-contained story. It's a prologue. It's about 12 minutes long. And with every episode, we're going to have a single that releases, and maybe an element from the score with it as like a B-side. So the first episode has a song called "The Gambit of Night," and it deals with the danger of stepping out into potentiality of the night and into a forest and into a high place. What it means to actually go out and look for something, and that you could pull in something dangerous, you could pull in something amazing, and the song deals with that in a poetic sense. I think people, again, who are a fan of symbolism are going to really dig into that. So episode 1 takes place 27 years before episode 2. And the rest of it happens within the same day almost. So, but I'm looking forward to getting feedback from people on it. Hopefully I can drive some people on my Patreon to support, so I can finish all the editing and all the special effects. We have visual effects artists on the film. The whole thing was done green screen. So we rented in Kentucky, we rented a space, put up a giant green screen, bought a camera, bought the lights, and the whole thing's done in front of a green screen. So because our vision for it was to almost look like, we didn't want it to look realistic in the end. but we wanted it to be dreamy and we didn't want it to feel fake either. So it's kind of almost like a kid imagining a play. And so there's these props and these depths, almost like a full-size diorama. Like, the not exactly like this, but where like the kind of things where people are pulling waves along in the background.
Yes.
So
it definitely has it has like a cinematic and a stage element.
Yeah.
At the same, like there's layered upon each other. It's really cool.
Yeah, so I stayed true to the silent film genre from the early days where they would lock the camera. The camera would be locked in position and you wouldn't move the camera in and out of the scene. That would have been disorienting back then. It was more like someone was trying to capture stage play. And there are cinematic elements, but we would never rely on camera movement to get those effects. So the camera almost never moves in the.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so it's like the movement is more of like the things within the shot moving.
Yeah, so a lot of the sets I made myself, and some of the stuff's miniature.
Cool.
Some of it's handmade. Like I drew a bunch of the set pieces. A guy named Chad Nuss designed them. My friend Pete Mitchell is putting them all together, compositing the green screen, cleaning up the green screen, adding some handmade drawn elements. There's some drawn animation, and it's all coming together. And I think it's really like I had high expectations, and I'm ahead of them right now. So especially for the budget, it was like we had no money to do it. So it took a lot of buy-in, and there's a huge cast. And
speaking of which, folks, you can go support Neil on Patreon, and it's definitely worth the investment because you get really awesome things like what's about to come out with Queen of the Night.
Right. So I mean, we don't give you anything except for the fact that you're helping us support like these types of episodic projects that we make. So that's really what it is. So even just a few dollars a month is like it's going to get this made. If we just get a few more people in there, we're going to be covered. So yeah, and so but we don't really offer any perks. Like if actually there is a perk, if you will get an invite to our Discord server, which Kate and I get in there live and talk to people and hang out. So that's one of the perks you get. But I think, I'm interested to see what you pull out of it, because every once in a while someone watches it, like I'm showing the episode, and they'll point out something like that we were just doing by intuition. There's a scene my 7-year-old son added. It's a very short element in scene 1. He's acting in it. So I use my own kids because they are actors and they do community theater and stuff like that. But I just realized there was no way I was going to be able to get other people's kids and like boss them around and tell them what to do on set. It was going to grind things to a halt. With your own kids, it's like, hey, listen, if you don't want to do this right now, you don't have to play video games later either. So I could just bribe them. Yes. Or be like, hey, we'll do this later if you do this. We get this done quickly. And so
just like the curtains on the stage, right? There's little levers.
Yeah. So we did that.
Well, hey, you know what? If farmers can do that, why not musicians, creative folk? Right?
I know it's sad. It's like, help, Dad. We're getting sucked into the family business.
Hey, you know what? There's something noble and enriching about that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think in the future, it's like if you can't build robots or program robots or be an entertainer, there's not going to be much to do. So hopefully entertainment's for my kids. So.
Yeah, in that sense, they're ahead of the curve. They'll thank you for it later.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, I would tell people, please find us on YouTube because that's where it's going to air.
Okay, cool.
16th, Derpo Robbins, follow our channel on there. You can put a link in the description maybe. That's the place to link and subscribe to. And November 16th is going to be a live event. And then after that, probably every 6 weeks, another episode comes out. There's 5 in all. And there's some big twists ahead. So I hope that people get it enough right away to stick with it. So I think they will. But what do I know? I'm just an artist.
Neil, I very much look forward to, how do you say, like, disintegrating and reintegrating through analysis these episodes of Queen of the Night that are coming up.
Well, thanks for doing it, man. I'm glad your channel's picking it up. I know people will do this type of thing, but I know I have at least one who will know what they're talking about doing it.
Well, I'm glad that your trust is in me. I'll do what I can.
Yeah, you got it, man.